Om Sarvadharmastapakastvam Sarvadharmaswarupakaha Acharyanam Mahacharyo Ramakrishnayate Namaha. Yesterday, due to some technical problems, this discourse could not be properly heard or seen. So today, I would be repeating the whole thing from what we started yesterday. From that point, let me start again. Now, before that, we are studying Sri Ramakrishna the Great Master, 5th part, Master in Divine Mood and Narendranath, and we are in the 5th chapter, and we had read 6 paragraphs before this. And the sum and substance of that was that Narendra visited, first Master saw Narendra in Surendra's house. He was attracted and he asked Narendra to visit him in Dakshineshwar and asked Surendranath and Ramchandra to bring him. Then something happened. Narendra had heard about the Master from his principal ST, but when he refused to marry, that became the turning point. And Ramchandra Datta had grown in their house. So he could understand that it is not due to the particular girl or her color, but because Narendra, for his spiritual pursuits, does not want to marry at all. He told Narendranath, why you are moving here and there like going to Brahma Samaj? Come with me to Dakshineshwar. And then Surendranath had a coach of his own, so he asked Narendranath to come, and Narendranath with a few of his friends went in that coach. And there, Master remembered a vision immediately. As he had seen Narendra in Surendra's house, there also he had remembered, but now vividly remembered. And his vision was that his mind was rising higher and higher, crossed different lokas, and came to a point where the divided and undivided are divided. That means where a man keeps his individuality, keeps his I consciousness, and tries to realize God or realizes God, that is called the divided portion, khandita, khanda. And when totally loses his I, merges his I in God itself, becomes God himself, that is called the akhanda portion. And in that akhanda, he saw now, he saw 7 rishis, their bodies made of light only. they are still there. That means their ego, if you like to call it, their I consciousness is so absolutely pure that they are maintaining their personality even with total merging in God. So that body is not Sthul Sharir, neither is it Sukshma Sharir like the Devata or anybody in the Khandita world. So this is what that is. It is the spiritual body, and that spiritual body is made of consciousness only. So that is full of light. And such 7 persons are still there. And then he saw that the light around them became congealed as a child. And then that child embraced one of the rishis. We do not know which. He embraced one of the rishis and then asked him, he made him get up from his samadhi and asked him, I am going, you also have to come with me. And that rishi was extremely joyful, loving towards that child, did not speak anything, but by signs he showed that I am ready to do what you command me. So there was some very special relation between them. And when Master saw Narendra, he remembered this vision fully, and that time he had seen that a ray comes from there and has touched Calcutta. And so when he saw Narendra, he remembered that vividly. Now, and he said so many things to Narendra that day. That you have come from Saptarshi is one thing, but now these questions are there in our mind. How Thakur found him in different places. So Thakur is telling that you are Nara, the part of Narayana. Narayana is the name of the avatar, who with his companion called Nara, both of them practiced hard tapasya in Badrikashram and brought down Advaita to this world. So you are that Nara. And then why you came late and all that, Thakur told 2 things. That listening to the worldly talks of people, my ears have become scorched. And I want to listen from some Shuddha Sattva man. And talking to this, unable to talk my inner experiences to these people, my stomach as if has swollen. So I want to talk to a proper person. And then Narendra had gone with 2 or 3 or 4 of his friends. So Thakur urged him that you must come again alone. Then Narendra had several things. So after about a month, he went there in the second visit. Now Sri Ramakrishna has seen Narendra as we have seen absolutely qualified to realize the Nirguna Brahma in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, ILS Samadhi. So he touched him by his foot. And what happened? Narendra saw that the entire world, that room, all its contents, and his eye consciousness, they are revolving and going into some nothingness. He mentally was not fit, though spiritually he is fit, but his upbringing, due to Western education and due to Brahma Samaj, never believed that there could be a state beyond I. And so he shouted, what are you doing? I am my parents. Then Sri Ramakrishna laughed and put his hand on his chest and said, okay, let it not happen immediately. It will happen in due course. Now that put a little doubt in Sri Ramakrishna's mind. Is he the same person whom I had seen? Now the difference lies not in the inner person, but in the mind, mental level. Anyway, so because of this doubt, he asked Narendra to come again, and Narendra perhaps went after 1 week. And then he took Narendra to Yadu Mallik's house, which was near Dakshineshwar, in Dakshineshwar itself, near the temple. And there Thakur entered Samadhi first and touched Narendra with his feet. And then a different thing happened. Narendra's outer personality was suppressed totally for the moment. So Thakur as God can do anything, whatever he likes. And so many types of spiritual visions he has. It is not a question of power only. It is the power comes from the spiritual consciousness. So he suppressed the outside personality of Narendranath, and to the inner personality he asked questions and got his answers, which tallied completely with what he had seen him in visions. And Narendra, for his part, believed that he has a strong willpower and he cannot be influenced by others. In the first meeting, he thought that Thakur is monomaniac, but he has sarvasva tyag for God. He has definitely seen God, he sees God, and so I must come to him to study him, and Thakur had invited him. After second meeting, Narendra thought, what is this? I have a strong personality, and how this man at a touch changed me completely? So I will be very cautious when I go to him next time. But more wonderful thing happened. Because in the second meeting, Narendra was conscious what is happening. In the third meeting, outside Narendra was suppressed totally. And so, though he replied correctly to Thakur, he does not understand what has happened. So he thought that how can I call him monomaniac? A person who could take others' mind and just mold them as he likes, like clay. But this is acceptable only if he is an incarnation of God. But how to believe immediately? The sanskaras, outside sanskaras don't allow it. So I will go on testing him. I will not believe him completely. I will go on testing him. That was Narendranath. Up to this point we have studied in the 6th paragraph. Now, 7th we read the master's apprehension about Narendra. Apprehension. What is that apprehension? That Narendra has 18 powers. That is another vision Sri Ramakrishna has seen. Keshav and others, religious leaders, have one or two of that powers. Narendra has 18. So, if he chooses a wrong path, he will be the cause of destruction of this world. Instead of teaching the world the correct meaning of religion, he will either create a sect, narrow, or we shall see later on that he will marry and then settle down in world, and then again its mind will be narrow. So that was the apprehension until he could see that Narendra has no chance now of going in any direction, that he became normal. And the name of this chapter was Shri, the Master's Selfless Love and Narendranath, giving an indication that he loved him really, loved him without any selfish interest for the sake of the world. And that love caught Narendranath. He could not escape that bondage of love. And that influenced him in the end, and he became totally a disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. Totally surrendered his will to Sri Ramakrishna. That is the hinted by the name of the chapter. So, after the test, the master was free from anxiety in a way. That means he is the same person. But some apprehension was still lurking in his mind. For Narendra, the master saw, had in him in full measure 18 qualities or manifestations of power. Qualities means qualities of the mind. They become the powers. He's a good orator, he's a good singer, he's a good dancer, he's a good boxer, and all these will be used when he does the work of the Lord in this world. The possession of one or two of which enables a man to acquire extraordinary fame and influence in the world. Fame and influencing in the world, that is important. It would lead to an undesirable contrary result. He thought if Narendra failed to direct them properly, so these 18 powers have to be directed properly. The mental qualities have to be directed properly into the spiritual channel by realizing the ultimate truth about God, man and the world. About God, what is the ultimate truth? That Ishvara created the world. Real nature of Ishvara is the same Brahman, the transcendent reality. The real nature about man, all men, real nature is the same transcendental immanental reality called Brahman. In case of individuals, it is called Atman. And world. What is the reality of the world? We say Brahman. So, I repeated several times. Let me repeat it once more. My Guruji told me on the very first day that an example, there is one Mr. Subodh Mukherjee, he is executive engineer in some office. So in office he is called XM. Friends call him Mr. Mukherjee. And in the house he is Subodh Babu. So these are not three persons, three names due to three references. So when you ask what is the reality of the entire world, the reply is Brahman. What is the reality of the individuals? The reply is Atman. That cannot be separate realities. And when the question is asked who governs this world, then his name is Ishwar. And so there are three names in three references, and that we find here real ultimate truth, God, man, and the world. If that happened, that means fail to direct them properly. If that happened, Narendra would found a new sect or religion. Sect, and people call it religion, new religion. Actually, it is a sampradaya, a particular method, and be famous in the world like other spiritual leaders or prophets. But in that case, it would not be possible for him first to realize himself. So that is not realizing fully one's own nature. And then to disseminate the grand Catholic truth, Catholic means broad, the grand Catholic truth of the spiritual world, the realization and propagation of which were the crying needs of the modern age. In the modern age, due to science especially, the world has come very near physically. Previously, each person or each place was an island in itself. Now the world has come so close that we shall either fight or love. And so, really on the religious points. And so, the harmony of religions is absolutely necessary. Harmony is not a compromise. Harmony is the truth discovered by Sri Ramakrishna that as many faiths, so many paths. So that realization of this Catholic truth, one should realize this oneself and then propagate to the world. That is why we call Sri Ramakrishna as Acharyanam Mahacharya. He has made a full team realize this truth. So that is the crying need of the modern age. And the world would thus be deprived of its greatest blessing. That is the greatest blessing of the world. Therefore, there arose then a great ardent desire in the Master's heart that Narendra should follow him in all respects. He is trying to do independent things. Let him do. Due to love, Thakur will catch it. And if we follow Sri Ramakrishna entirely, then this right thing will happen. Sri Ramakrishna is the embodiment of that, and Narendra will realize and propagate that. And like him, have the immediate knowledge of the grand spiritual truths ready to reveal themselves. So, immediate is not in the sense of time, without any immediacy. If you want to see a thing outside, we use our eyes. If you want to know what is happening in our mind, eyes neither can reach nor are necessary. We can know it in the mind itself. What is our own real nature? Mind or indriyas cannot reach it and they are not necessary. Without the mediacy of indriyas and mind and even eye consciousness, that is called the immediate knowledge. Without any mediacy, immediate knowledge of the grand spiritual truths. What are the truths? Ready to reveal themselves. That means the absolute truth is there. And on the way there are so many truths. And they reveal themselves if we proceed like correctly. The master used to say, just as water weeds are seen to grow in pools, small ponds, etc., where there is no current of water, so sects confined within narrow circles arise. Whenever in the spiritual world, man remains contented with partial truths, that is like the boundaries. Man remains contented like the partial truths. Regarding as the whole, people are welcome to realize the partial truths, but they should know it is a partial truth. If they take partial truth as the whole, then it is damaging. One is surprised to think in how many ways the master tried to make Narendra, how many ways the master tried to make Narendra a fit recipient of the perfect truth. Lest possessed of extraordinary intelligence and mental qualities as he was, he should go astray and form a sect of his own. That is like going astray. The reason of the master's extraordinary attraction for Narendra, para number 8, in your book, page 1055. This strange, strong attraction of the master for Narendra, which he had from their very first meeting, did not abate and assume a natural state. It appeared very unnatural because he was so anxious from all sides to train Narendra. Until Narendra is following him perfectly, he was anxious. So it appeared unnatural. And assume a natural state till he was convinced that there was no more possibility of Narendra going astray in the manner mentioned above. A little reflection on this phenomena clearly shows that some of its causes were rooted in Master's extraordinary visions about Narendra. Why so much worry about Narendra than others? Because of his extraordinary vision that he is bound to, as his chief helpmate in this work, and others in the fear lest coming under the influence of the modern age, he should willingly take upon himself some such bondage as the desire for a wife. So one is founding a small sect and the other is marrying. Desire for a wife, wealth or fame. The Upanishads call them Daraishana, Vittaishana, Lokeshana. So Loka has two meanings, different lokas, or Lokeshana means popularity. Wife, wealth or fame, that popularity. And fail even partially to fulfill the ultimate aim of his great life. That means the householders, they realize truth but not fully. So even partially it should not elect in Narendra's case. This attraction was but natural and inevitable. He's telling it did not appear natural, but it was natural and inevitable. Inevitable means Master and Narendra have to come together for the sake of the world for which Master was born as incarnation. As a result of the Master's long period of penance and renunciation, 12 years he practiced tapasya. His limited individual consciousness disappeared, that we have seen in the Gurva Purvarga chapter, Bhav Samadhi, etc. And he became eternally identified in consciousness with the cause of the universe. That is the name of the Ishvara, Jagat Karan Ishvara. And felt the Lord's work of doing good to humanity as his own. To let the world continue, God does good to the world. And that is, he himself saw that that is his work. He came to know through the power of this knowledge that it was the will of the benign, all-pervading person, that the very great work of removing the causes of the decline of religion in the modern age should be accomplished with his body and mind as the instrument. No I consciousness. So body and mind as the instrument, this work has to be done. But side by side, and it was through the power of the same knowledge that he knew that Narendra was not born to secure some puny little selfish end of his own, but out of intense love for God, real nature of God, intense love. He had come down, we have seen that love, that Rishi embracing and all that. He had come down on earth to help him in the work of doing good to humanity. Is it therefore surprising that he should regard the selfless, eternally free Narendra? Narendra has no self, so no selfishness. And he is eternally free. But will come down as man, then a little teaching is necessary. Narendra as supremely his own, God's own, and be strongly attracted towards him. Is it therefore surprising that he should be strongly attracted towards him? Strange though it might appear to superficial observers, they could not understand at all the quality of the love, the intensity of the love, mad like love. To penetrating eyes, this attraction of the master for Narendra was quite natural in it. Eyes like sadhana Swami or sadhaka, that is penetrating eye. Penetrating eye is not like X-ray, but they could see the inner meaning, spiritual meaning. The master's love for Narendra was not of the worldly type. From outside it is very strange type. Lover and beloved, they cannot be like that. It is beyond our power to give an indication of how intensely the master regarded Narendranath as his own and how deeply he loved him from the day he met him first. Intensely regarded him as his own and deeply loved him. The reasons that prompt worldly people to regard others as their own and bestow their love on them were conspicuous by their absence in this case. Two expressions he has used now. Regard others as their own and bestow their love. So the cause is body. My father, my mother, after marriage, my wife, and mental association with friends. So this is not the thing. The cause of the God only is the cause. But it never fell to our lot to see anywhere else, even in an iota, of the joy or anxiety felt by the master owing to his union with or separation from Narendra. That is how love is tested. They have seen that when Narendra came, Thakur became mad like. And Narendra went away, Thakur wept like anything. So, in the world, an iota of this is not possible. We had never before an idea that man could love man so selflessly. When we saw the Master's wonderful love for Narendra, we were convinced that the world was sure to witness the day when man would realize the manifestation of God in man and feel blessed by pouring out truly selfless love on that manifestation. This is a lesson drawn. Avatar is a prototype of man. He shows what man could be and should be. So when Thakur loves Narendra in this way, very intensely without selfishness, then how? Because he sees God in Narendra. So we should be able to see God in everybody and love like that everybody. That is the lesson drawn. Now, examples of how people saw it. Two examples he will give. Swami Premananda's testimony to that love. Swami Premananda came for the first time to the Master shortly after Narendra had come to be with him. For some reason, Narendra could not come to Dakshineshwar for about a week or so. That is too much for Thakur. Premananda was simply amazed to see the Master's agonizing pain of separation from Narendra and used to describe it to us on many occasions. That impression was so deep in Premananda that many times he has described it to other disciples. Swami Premananda came for the first time to Dakshineshwar and found the Master's solicitude for Narendra. Solicitude means anxiety. He said, Premananda is telling a quotation mark. He said, Swami Brahmananda and I went to the Hatkola Ghat to take a boat. When I saw Ramdayal Babu there, knowing that he was also going to Dakshineshwar, he had already visited the Master frequently. Brahman Swami was almost staying with Thakur. Premananda was new. We got into a boat together and it was almost dusk when we reached Rani Rasmuni's Kali temple. We came to the Master's room and were told that he had gone to the temple to pay obeisance to the Mother of the Universe. Asking us to stay there, Swami Brahmananda went toward the temple to bring him. I saw him holding the Master very carefully and coming with him, saying, steps, go here, go up here, down here, like guiding a small child. I had already heard that the Master used to become overwhelmed with emotion. He had heard, not visited the Master. And we have always seen that word emotion is not happy, spiritual feelings. Overwhelmed with emotions and lose normal consciousness. Therefore, I knew that he was in ecstasy when I saw him thus coming down, reeling like a drunken man. It is premonmatta, jnanonmatta, like the drunken man. Entering the room in that state, he sat on the small bedstead. The big bedstead is for sleeping, small bedstead is like a chair for sitting. Coming shortly afterwards to the normal state, he asked me to examine the features of my face. No, he asked me a few questions about me and my relations, the background, and began to examine the features of my face, hands, feet, etc. This is called the science of physiognomy. By that they can know the inner things. He held in his hand for some time my forearm from the elbow to the fingers to feel its weight and then said, nice. He alone knew what he understood by that the buddhi is good and saral, simple. Both these things he sees like that. Because in other case, Sharad Maharaj's younger brother Charu, there he had directly told this. Then he asked Ramdayal Babu about Narendra's health, because they knew each other. Hearing that he was all right, The master said, it is long since I came here, 1 week. I should very much like to see him. Please ask him to come once. A few hours were delightfully spent in religious talks. We took our meal at 10 p.m. and lay down in the veranda to the east of the master's room and to the north of the courtyard. Those who have seen Dakshineshwar, for them to visualize this, so he is describing like this. The heading here is what Premananda thought when he saw the terrible anxiety of the master throughout the night. Beds were arranged for the master and Swami Brahmananda in the room. Because Brahmananda had already become Thakur's home. Scarcely had an hour passed when he came out from his room with his cloth under his armpit. Cloth stays on our body due to the friction of the body. When there is no body consciousness, cloth cannot stay. Now he carries that under his armpit. To our bedside, and addressing Ramdal Babu said affectionately, "Are you sleeping?" Both of us sat up hurriedly on our beds and said, "No, sir." The master said, "Look here, as I have not seen Narendra for a long time, I feel as if my whole soul is being forcibly wrung like a wet towel." That was the depth of sorrow. He is a person of pure Sattva. He is Narayana himself. What is pure Sattva? Sattva, Rajatama are not separate. They have to stay together. And in our case, it is called Malina Sattva. Because all three are working. Now in avatar or people of that type, the Tamagun, Rajogun are very less. That is called pure Sattva. He is a person of pure Sattva, he is Narayana himself. That is that Nararupi Narayana. I cannot have peace of mind if I don't see him now and then. Because Thakur can really associate with somebody only if he is of this type. Ramdal Babu had been frequenting Dakshineshwar for some time past. The boy-like nature of the master was not therefore unknown to him. Seeing that boy-like behavior of the master, he knew that he was in ecstasy. All this talk is in Bhav Samadhi. He tried to console him, saying that he would see Narendra as soon as it was morning and ask him to come and similar other things. But that mood of the master was not at all elevated that night. Knowing that we were having no rest, he would retire to his room now and then for some time. But the next moment he would forget this and come to us again and again and begin to speak of Narendra's good qualities, expressing pathetically the terrible anguish of his mind on account of Narendra's long absence. There is no drama in that. Naturally it is going on. Seeing that terrible pang of separation of his, I was astonished and thought how wonderful is his love and how hard-hearted that person must be for whom his longing is so devastating and behavior so pathetic. Now actually it is not hard-heartedness, but Narendra's strong character. He does not want to get influenced unless he is very sure. The night passed that way. In the morning, we went to the temple and paid our obeisance to the Divine Mother. Then, going down at the feet of the Master, we took leave of him and returned to Calcutta. So, first example. Second example, what Vaikuntanath said of the Master's love for Narendra.
Vaikuntanath channel is Swami Vivekananda.
Swami? Yes. It's a temporary sannyas. So he became Swami Kripananda and went with these people for tapasya in Rishikesh. But later on he resumed his household job. So there is a provision, Tridandi Sannyas they call it. So temporary one becomes a sannyas. So he had become like that and with the name Krupananda. And he was Saradananda Swamiji's very fast friend. At one time in the year 1883, that means 2 years after Narendra Thakur's visit, till then Thakur is anxious about him. Love. A friend of ours, Vivekananda Sanyal, came to Dakshineshwar and saw the master extremely anxious because Narendra had not come for a long time. He says, Vaikuntha Sanyal is telling, the master's mind became full of Narendra as it were. He spoke of nothing else but Narendra's good qualities. Look here, said he, addressing me. Narendra is a man of pure sattva, that is repeated. He, I have seen, is one of the 4 belonging to the abode of the indivisible and one of the 7 rishis. Now, you open your, without closing this page, open your page 1045 in the book. In the previous chapter, you have seen that already. Now here, I read a few lines from the 9th paragraph. That is Master's wonderful vision about Narendra. Let me read full. One day I saw that through Samadhi my mind was going up by a luminous path, going beyond the gross world, studded with the sun, the moon and the stars. It entered first of all into the subtle world of ideas. The more it began to ascend to higher and higher strata of that realm, subtle realm, the more did I see beautiful ideal forms of deities, devatas. They are all Sukshma Sharir, existing on both sides of the path. He is going forward, so both sides of the path. It came gradually to the last extremity of that region. I saw a fence made of light there separating the realm of the divisible from the indivisible. Fence is not made of wire, fence is made of light. And the difference is so big that leaping over that fence, it is like a jump from Sagun to Nirgun. Within Sagun, layers are there, but after Sagun is over, jump to Nirgun. Leaping over that fence, the mind entered by degrees the realm of the indivisible. I saw that there was no more any person or thing there having a form. As if afraid to enter there, even the gods and goddesses possessing heavenly bodies exercise their authority over realms far below. But the very next moment I saw 7 wise rishis having bodies consisting of divine light only, seated there in Samadhi. So here we find 7 wise rishis. Yeah. There in 1045. And here we are reading, I have seen is one of the 4 belonging to the abode of indivisible and one of the 7 rishis. Now, who are the 7 rishis and who are those 4? Now, in the popular notion or in many Puranas, 7 rishis are mentioned. And there is sometimes little variation in names. And people believe that we see here, see in astronomy, 7 stars moving around moon, they are supposed to be the 7 rishis. And actually there are 8. Near one star there is a small star. And this is Vashishta's wife Arundhati. So these are the names. Sometimes Bhrigu, Kashyap, Atri, Bharadwaj, Vishwamitra, Jamadagni, Gautam, Vashishta. Sometimes these are 8 I read. Bhrigu is mentioned as the supreme rishi. Sometimes Bhrigu's name is not there. Instead of Kashyap, sometimes Kapila his name is there. So with little variation, these are the 7 rishis. But this does not seem to be made there. So the translator has found out 7 names from some other source. And the meaning is that these 4 and 7 have somebody in common. Because Thakur says, I saw 7, 4 and 7. He belongs to the 4 and 7. How can he belong to 2 groups? Because he is one of the 4 and the 4 are included in this 7. And the 4 are famous, Brahma's Manasputra. That is Sanaka, Sanandana, Sanatana and Sanat Kumar. Now the 7, the author, translator has found from some source. These 4 names are there and 3 more. Sana, Sanat Kumara, not a relative friend, Sanat Sujata. Sanat Sujata is Vidura's guru. And Vidur invokes him when Dhritarashtra is not amenable to Vidura's talk. So he invokes his guru and he talks with Dhritarashtra. And that portion is in Mahabharata with commentary of Shankaracharya called Sanat Sujatiya. So Sanat Sujata, Sanaka, Sanandana, Sanatana and Kapil. Kapil is the originator of Sankhya. So these 7 and these 7 are mentioned because these 4 are included here. So he is one of them. And nobody has bothered to find which of. Some people become anxious, which Rishi, which Rishi. And they try to find in these 7 which we see. But he is from the 4 and 7. There is no limit to his good qualities. Saying so, the master became much worried and was shedding incessant tears like a mother separated from her child. That is Vaikuntha's description. Actually, we know Thakur said that I am a mother and he is not. So it's almost a beloved weeping for the lover. Afterwards, seeing that he was by no means able to control himself and considering what we should think of that behavior of his, he went with a rapid step to the veranda to the north of his room, weeping bitterly for some time so they could hear him there. Weeping bitterly for some time, we heard, sobbed out these words with a choked voice. There, in the alone itself, he is sobbing out these words, weeping and talking. I cannot do without seeing him. Controlling himself a little after some time, he came into the room and sat down beside us, saying pathetically and sorrowfully, I wept so much, but Narendra did not come. The longing to see him has produced a terrible anguish, as if my heart was wrung, but it does not at all realize the intensity of the attraction I feel for him. This is generally the premika stuff. That it does not understand the intensity. That means he understands the attraction, but not the intensity. Saying so, he became worried again and went out of the room. Returning to the room a little later, he said, what will they think to see that I, a man of such advanced age, am weeping and panting so much for him? You are among the people who are my own. I don't feel ashamed in your presence. So this is talking only to Vaikuntha, not plural. But what will others think when they see it? But I can by no means control myself. Here we were as confused. We were speechless to see the master's love for Narendra. Because we is plural. And we know he has gone there alone. There is no mention of other man. Let me see the original Bengali here. Amra. So he himself is there, we do not know other. So plural is correct. Huh? I put into translation. We were speechless to see the master's love for Narendra. We thought Narendra must be a godlike person. So Premananda's idea, hard-hearted person, that they are feeling godlike person. Why otherwise is the master so much attracted to? Because of this reason. There he does not understand so hard-hearted. But master's love, why? Master cannot love anything of the world at all. So he loves him. He cannot be attached to the person of the world. So that love is like a godlike person. We then said, consoling him, it is very wrong of him. That is how to console that lady. Sir, he knows you feel so much pain on account of his absence and still he does not come. That is how it is consoled. Shortly after this event, one day, now, the other side, meeting him joyful. So, other occasion, Vaikuntana speaking. Shortly after this event, one day, he introduced me to Narendra. I saw that the master was as delighted when united with Narendra as he was worried when separated from him. We went later to Dakshineshwar, third time. Huh? We went later to Dakshineshwar on the master's birthday. The devotees that day adorned him beautifully, dressed him up in new attire, flower garlands, sandal paste, etc. Kirtan was being sung in new veranda to the east of his room, near the garden. Surrounded by the devotees, the master listened to it, now entering into ecstasy, now making the kirtan interesting by interposing extempore line or two, Akhar Deva. Spontaneously, a line is composed, fitting with the spirit of the song, and added. But he could not enjoy the bliss fully on account of the absence of Narendra. So he is entering into samadhi, athar, but inside full joy is not there. He looked around from time to time and said to us, Narendra, I see, has not come. At about noon, Narendra came and bowed down at his feet in the assembly of the devotees. As soon as the master saw him, he jumped up, sat on his shoulders and went into ecstasy. So assembly of devotees is there, but Thakur forgets everybody and sits on Narendra's shoulder. He engaged himself in conversing with and feeding him. He listened to the kirtan no more that day. So both sides he has seen. Although an especial object of the master's love, Narendra remained unmoved. This demonstrates the uncommon fitness for spirituality. So not hard-hearted, that character, not to surrender to anybody. I will tell you one point on this point. I once asked my Guruji that ego is a big problem, is it not? He said, what do you mean? Will you subjugate your ego to somebody's ego? Ego should be destroyed means ego should bend only before God, not before anybody. We think this man is very humble, Mahanta, trustee, big man, elders, and become subjugated. That is not Narendra. That is being shown. That is called the character. If I have some ideas, if I am pure, if I am confident about myself, then why should I bend? If I know that he is God, then only I will bend. And I will test him first and then bend. That was Narendra's character. One is surprised to think of the love that is rarely to be found even among the gods, of which Narendra was the recipient when he came to the master. One clearly understands how strong his love for truth was. Truth is ultimate truth. or any real truth. That is his love. When one finds that in spite of that unusual, ceaseless shower of selfless love, he remained firm and unmoved and went forward to test the master at every step, so that he might attain the wholly unalloyed truth. So by test he will find out. You see, this is a big difference. Our case, how we define whether man is good or bad, you tell me. If he is good to me, he is a good man. If he is not good to me, he is not a good man. That is not at all the test. And in Narendra's case, you will find out. In our life, that is very important. We should not fall a prey to the people praising us. Suppose I have some judgment about that person and he loves me, I will avoid him. So, the normal state of ours, where we define the goodness or badness of a man according to what he behaves with us, is not correct. This we learn from Narendranath here. So, he is testing how he behaves with other people. Surprising as it was, the other side, namely the master's other side, he is going on testing master, he is not worried. Because out of freedom and free test only, the truth should be accepted. Surprising as it was, the other side, namely the master's magnanimity and absence of egoism, otherwise he does not accept me the ego words, was no less amazing. When one finds that instead of feeling wounded on account of that unbecoming mood of Narendra, he submitted himself gladly to be so tested, in order that the disciple might have the satisfaction of realizing spiritual truths thoroughly investigated by himself. So, truth should be accepted after thorough investigation. One's surprise simply transcends all limits. Thus, the more we study the relation of the Master with Narendra, the more are we charmed to see the eagerness on the part of the one to accept all things only after testing them, and on the other, that of the other, to bring home high spiritual truths to the disciple by submitting to the test. We shall then understand how a true Guru teaches a highly qualified disciple by keeping intact his spiritual attitudes, and how at last he occupies forever a place of high regard and reverence in the heart of the disciple. At last. Now I remember here, in my personal life a little, a person known to you people, I hope he is not listening now. Yogatmananda, who is in Providence now. He was a student in Nagpur Students' Home when I was the warden. And every time he opposed me, every time, rebelled. And I loved him more and more. And in the end, he became a sadhu. So it is only when you allow freedom that a man can realize. Anyway, I am a small person, but I remembered that incident. I am not going to tell the details. Every time he opposed. I understood that he has guts. He has some ideas. That is why he is doing so. And it was proved. One small incident. No, time is not there now. Boys used to do Saraswati Puja 3 days. And themselves used to collect chanda from themselves. And then some devotees or Swamis would help them. So 1 year, they had taken 7, old thing I'm telling, 7 rupees from each one. Next year, they were taking 10 rupees. And his name was Rajiv. Rajiv said that they waste money too much. In 4 rupees we can do. And he did not pay 10 rupees. I told the boys, don't bother about it. If he is not paying, don't take 4 rupees from him. Your money will come out. So the thing happened. Some money was left. We had a group photo. He did not join the group because I was not giving money. Then the boy said that, I said, let him not come. Boy said that historically it will be wrong. I said, it will not be wrong. After photo, you print all the names and write in the absent Rajiv Karil. That's all. Historically, it will not be wrong. Then next year I said, Rajiv, you are today secretary and you do it in 4 rupees. And he did it. They used to distribute prasad after devotees have went away to the sadhana. But Rajiv distributed prasad to everybody who came, and in 4 rupees. Anyway. So, we end this chapter. Next chapter, heading, we shall see later on. Today we have seen the selfless love of Master Paranarendra. And many dimensions. If he does not respond, I become angry. No. Let him proceed by his path. Om Sarvadharma Sthapakasvam Sarvadharma Swarupakaha Acharyanam Acharyo Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanam.
Jaya